Leo Barbera or Kumo Craft.
Nice. Mitch, bring us in.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Englewood Camera Shop Talk, and we're live here. We have our special guest today is Leo Barbera. He luckily is my neighbor for the time being. Unfortunately moving, but we did meet briefly. You were outside flying your racing drone around, and I was wildly impressed. You had like a ton of skill, it looked like. So and then I messaged you, and we wanted to talk about that. And you also do macro work, and we wanted to talk about that too. So sounds like we got some interesting stuff. I know you're pretty passionate about it. We were talking it already, so let's I kind of just want to dive right into it. So
for sure.
But what would you describe if it's not racing? Because you do a little bit of the racing too. But when you're doing these like cinematic shots with like a GoPro mounted to one of these drones, what would you call one of those? Would you just call it still a racing drone, or?
It can still be a racing drone. Most drones are pretty similar. The only difference between a racing drone and what we call a freestyle or a cinematic drone is just weight. The more cinematic style, like this is a cinematic style, and this is where I would put the GoPro right here. So you just slide this GoPro into that. Okay. And then this is like something that would be considered more of a freestyle drone. And these are designed to just be stable during flight, and you can do tricks and stuff with them. And it's just playing with the environment. So you have the freedom to do freedom of flight, whatever you want. You want to hover in place. You want to go dive this building. You want to go, whatever you want to do. And then
quite a bit different than from, so like today, or not today, just yesterday, DJI announced everybody knows DJI. They're a very popular drone company, but they make drones that are like they hold your hand to the furthest extent on flying.
Correct.
They released a cool one. It's called the Mavic Air 2. I think it's under $1,000, but it's got a really nice camera on it, and it has all of these automated flight modes that make it very easy for you to fly. But I think we were just talking about this earlier, that you do hit a wall pretty early on when flying those drones. As smooth and cinematic of footage that they give you, it almost always looks like a helicopter. You always can tell it's from like a DJI drone or something similar,
right?
Where it's just level flight. And so the difference then, you're using a freestyle drone, which you're in total control, but that takes a ton of skill. You've been doing it for how long, you said now?
So far, it's been about 3 years where I actually have seen this progression, but 4 years in total of just being kind of immersed in learning it and starting it and all that kind of stuff. So it's totally accessible. If you have the passion for flying, like you're just like, you know what, I feel like I want to feel like a bird and I want to fly, then that's going to be your driver. That's going to, because you're going to go through some learning, you're going to have to do some research, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff that's going to kind of kill that enthusiasm.
Whoa, this takes work. I can't just take off and get pretty footage.
The barrier to entry is a lot more accessible than it used to be when I started. It was just some nerds in the forest in France, and that made a video where they were Star Wars pod racing, and I was like, oh, awesome. I want to race through the moons of Endor, trees and just, And I saw them, and they were flying these drones just kind of, relatively slowly, but with lights, and they were flying through the trees, and I was like, that's it. I just what I'm going to do. And so I got into it, and it just took like 3 months of YouTube and reading and finding out how you put these things together, how it all works. And there are so many details, that you'll learn along the way. But if you just keep it simple, I could break it down. So like you said about the DJI, DJI, fantastic company if you just want to film. If you just want to capture like super HD footage, it's got a gimbal on it, and it's just going to hover. So when you look at a DJI, you think about this is a tripod that's just going to go in the airspace, and that's where I'm going to park my camera. And I'm either going to take a picture, or I'm going to use GPS and then make my drone move from point A to point B, and then I'm just going to control the camera to get a pan out of it. But it's really, for the DJI, it's more about like a gimbaled camera panning in a straight line. I've seen people whenever they fly DJIs and they try to do a complicated dynamic maneuver, and some people can do it well. And I think if they use like a tripod mode or just kind of like slow down the control a little bit, get a lot smoother.
Tripod mode is a big help on those things.
Yeah. So, you can get it done, but if you really want to fly through tight spaces and navigate through tree branches and things like that, then you're going to need more like control, and that's going to require like the training wheels to come off. And what I mean by training wheels is most drones that are just consumer drones become stabilized. So they kind of just park and they level themselves off. And then when you move them, they move, but as soon as you release the control, it goes right back to a stable position. So it's super easy to fly. And these like DJIs have all these sensors that keep from touching people, or, just kind of keeps everything safe. The drones that I'm flying are for people that are serious about flying, and it's going to go where you point it. So it's basically a guided missile, and you have to learn how to control that missile. So, there are many factors in it. So the way that I would separate a drone is you have an FPV system, which is first-person view. Mm-hmm. So you have the FPV system and the FPV display. That can be a TV screen or it can be goggles. So that's the FPV system. And this FPV system, you could put on anything you want. You could put it on a car. You could put it on an RC car. Whatever. You're just observing what the camera is transmitting from a distance. Sure. So that's their FPV system. Then you have the drone and the controller. So that's the control system. So the drone has, in this particular case, it's a quadcopter. So you have 4 propellers, and they control the axes. So it speeds up or slows down the motors based on what you're putting into the sticks. And the sticks, so what you have is a radio. And mine looks like this, but there are many different ones, transmitters. There are some that look more like game controllers. They're smaller now. Sure. And I might be getting one of those because it's just more portable. And if I have to travel to an event or to compete, then that's probably going to be more accessible. But these kinds of radios give you a lot of options. So you have transmitter options, like this system right here is a separate system. And then the radio itself comes with its own system. And so you have different types of receivers, and the radio talks to those receivers based on the system that you're running. So it's not complicated, even if it might sound complicated. Mm-hmm. It's more like you have a system of control and a system of vision. And then what happens with the quadcopter is you have a flight controller, which is the brain. It's the stabilization software. It's what keeps the helicopter in its position that you leave it at. So it is, in a sense, stable flight, but it's not like fighting your movement to go back to center.
It's not.
So exactly. So when I move the stick, it moves, and then when I release the stick, it stays where I left it. So I push, and then I release, and it stays. Push, release, and it stays. So you combine those movements, and you angle the quad in such a way that it carries the thrust and the hover in the direction that you're wanting it to go. And then when you add gravity to that mix, it becomes this whole like synergistic factor.
Yeah.
So that's where your brain has to figure out what's going on with just a little security surveillance camera, basically. This one right here. Mm-hmm. So because of the latency, your brain can tell. So like if you were to fly, you could technically take a GoPro, put it on 1080p, and then transmit the video. But at that resolution, you're experiencing a little bit of, or a lot of latency.
Like a
so you're getting the
delay.
Exactly. So you're getting the immersion, you're getting the view, but what's happening is way delayed, and it feels really bad. So what happens is if you take the camera and do like something real low res, like 640 by 480. And your goggles are like 600 to 800 TV line, it's just a real kind of like a VHS-y kind of noisy video feed, but it's instant. It's like you can't really tell if there's any kind of latency. So it's just on it. And so your brain forgets after a while that you are in your body and you're flying. And I think it's because of the latency mostly. when it feels instant, you just start to almost like you transform. You start to become the drone. You start to like you become a kind of a different animal, and you're reacting to the environment. So
it's funny you say that, because it was before I think I had a chance to talk to you outside. I saw you standing out there, and I was like, well, I want to go talk to him about his drone, but I didn't just want to like appear. I didn't just want to be like standing next to you and then you lift your headset off and I'm just there, because I knew it was like this focus that you had, and I was like, I don't want to distract him. So.
That's wise, but you don't even have to do that with me. But it's wise because you don't know if somebody's new and they just can't. But that's one of the things that I kind of love about racing is that it's a challenge, because even if you're really very skilled, when the adrenaline hits, it's hard to keep those fingers steady. And you have to be very precise with your movements. You have to be kind of like a little bit of a sniper, and your heartbeats get introduced into the sticks. That changes things. It can cause you to clip gates or crash.
Because these are going, they're going really, really fast.
How fast does this drone go compared to like a DJI?
DJI, I think, tops at around 40 miles an hour, around there, which is it's not slow, but you know, it's all right. It's pretty tame. These drones are kind of around more like the 60 to 80 mile per hour. Okay. But then if you build them in a certain way, you can get them up to beyond 120. Wow. It's just how you build them. The way that is more, I guess, popular is to build them in a way that you're not like the fastest, but you can like save battery life, and you can like be very maneuverable, very nimble. Sure. So you have to balance like power and weight, and all those kinds of things kind of change how the quad maneuvers in the air. So with racing, you want as light as possible with as much power as possible. Right. But sometimes you don't need all that extra power. It's just excess, because when you're on a racetrack and you full throttle, the quad will get up to speed very quickly, and then if you have more room, it'll keep accelerating. But most tracks, they're not going to be so wide that you're going to get to that point, so you're just wasting energy. So there's a lot of that involved. That's where the tinkering side comes in, where everybody loves to like play with you know, your setup, play with like, I'm going to run this motor with this prop, and then, you know, this prop gives me a lot of grip, but it's very inefficient. So I got like tons of grip and tons of control, but it kind of wastes a lot of battery life. Or I'm going to run this setup. It's super light. It's not very powerful, but it's very, very light. So it can kind of keep up. But on the turns, I can go way faster, because I could change the direction and then go way faster. So it's
amazing how much it parallels with you know, just regular any other type of racing with a vehicle. But when you slap a GoPro on here, you end up we did send some footage over to Kyle to show us. Yeah. And you get some pretty dreamy stuff. This is footage that you couldn't really ever get, I think, with a DJI unless you hacked into that thing.
Right. And so let me make sure you're not covered here. There we go. Now I can see you. What kind of beer are you drinking?
This is it's Rock Yard Brewing. It's a boysenberry blonde ale.
Nice. Is that out of Castle Rock?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. Our coworker Paul would be proud.
I'm still drinking water. So.
You're still drinking water. I'm still drinking water too. But all right. So this is Independence Pass. All right, sweet. And then for everyone watching, this is not as smooth as it looks on my screen, because we're obviously streaming it through this thing, but it still looks pretty smooth.
You also mentioned this had no stabilization. No stabilization.
And to the average eye, they may not see it, but once you've done it a while, you can kind of get these little oscillations that sometimes make you want to throw out the footage. You get that.
Right. And you're taking this thing between gaps of trees.
This is it's dreamy. It's stuff that you wish you could physically go do, and it does give you know, watching it really does give you the sensation that you're flying. If I had this up on like a big screen TV or something, it'd be amazing. And this is the kind of stuff do you know, are they actively using any of these types of drones in films now?
They are.
Because
They are and they aren't. It's kind of depends on the format, because GoPro does a really, really good job. But like when you put it on YouTube or kind of like
you blow it up.
whatever, it's not the same as like a DSLR, right?
Mhm.
So for a commercial or for Instagram, and for most YouTube, a GoPro is fantastic. But it has been used like with drifting videos where you chase drift cars.
Yeah.
Yes, those are amazing.
They have been used in sports. It's just really niche, and the type of footage that you get, you kind of want to mix up with other type of footage. Like if it was nothing but FPV footage like
it would
this,
become stale.
right? Right. So you get these like dynamic shots. So like whenever you have like the car commercial and you get these crazy dynamic shots that orbit around the vehicle and things like that.
Right.
I mean, that can be done with other gimbal systems and cranes, but it can also be done with the drone, and the drone can just take it further. It can just, climb or dive down a mountain and then appear into a party that's happening at the bottom of the mountain.
Right.
That kind of thing.
That's
in this footage here, you're going through a cloud.
Canyon.
The radio signal that it's using, do you ever have to worry about any kind of atmosphere or anything like that that'll interfere with it?
Absolutely. A lot of things can change, but you just fly within like the bounds of like within the technology's capability. So the system that I'm running is a 900 megahertz system. You have 2.4 gigahertz systems and 5.8 gigahertz systems. You have all kinds of systems, and these systems can get interference from like Wi-Fi signals. So like for example, my video system is 5.8. If I'm flying in the city, and there's Wi-Fi's all throughout the buildings, there's metal and everything, I get interference and it can kill my video. So I have to take just things into consideration. It's like, okay, well, this is susceptible to that or whatever. So in this particular case, Independence Pass, there's nothing. It's just free, open land. It's quiet, no noise. And beyond that, the system itself can go 4 miles out. The limit is the battery. So depending on your system, like you can build a slow crane type drone where it's like got really big propellers and they're really torquey motors, but they don't go very fast top speed. And you could last a very long time, but it's going to be a very boring, slow flight.
Right.
And then, so you want to balance that out. So in this particular case, I kind of try to keep it within a mile, at the most 2 miles, because I need battery for the way back. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it.
Right. That's got to be hard. All right. So that was the first one. Sorry. Let me pull up the next one. I like this one. This is in New Orleans. This share screen. This is you kind of weaving in and out of branches, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So this particular drone is super cool, and it's very accessible for new people that just want to film and fly and just explore. The slang for it is called a cine whoop.
Okay.
So that's the slang for it, but there are many different types of frames that are similar. And what it is it's a ducted frame. I'll actually show it to you.
Oh, I think I've seen these. That thing can pick up a GoPro?
Yep. Barely.
Oh, wow.
So this is what it is. And you put the GoPro in this 3D printed mount, just like the other one. So I use the same GoPro.
Yeah.
It's black, so you can hardly see it. But so these propellers are 3-inch propellers. And normally the standard is that you want 5-inch propellers, which, to give you a comparison, is, let me get this out right here. So that's a 5-inch propeller compared to and so a 5-inch propeller can carry a GoPro very well, very like effortlessly. But a 3-incher, it's different. So the ducts allow the air to be kind of inducted and forced to carry that weight. And this little thing is kind of like working at its hardest. It's like a little donkey. And so it flies around like basically a air hockey puck. Okay. So you're just kind of hovering, and sometimes the wind is a factor. So you kind of have to let the wind just kind of carry you. And you just kind of hover around basically and just kind of cruise. And that combined with GoPro hyper smooth or real steady,
Uh-huh.
you can get amazing, like, shots of the environment. You can fly inside of a party. You could do all kinds of stuff. And what I plan on doing with this is just getting real estate, stuff, and just kind of like showing the environment in ways that is more efficient. Like I could go up the spiral of stairs without having to walk up the stairs. You're not afraid of really hurting somebody, even though if you really tried, you could. But for the most part, it's not going to hurt anybody. So it's real
cool
fun.
That you say for real estate, you could do. A lot of people are doing the 360 tour walkthroughs where they take a series of photos, 360 photos, or they'll do, like we were talking about the other day, do a full like 3D map of the whole place, taking pictures of it. But in this case, you could get it done in one take. You just follow the whole thing
it would basically be a ride along tour.
Yeah.
So the 360 gives you like full control, but it's also like, and I like it. I think it's cool. My father does virtual tours for commercial photography, and they like super high res photos. But I still say that it's kind of clunky because it's like super high res photos, and you kind of just rotate yourself around through them, and then you click onto the next room, and then you go like Google Street View.
Right.
So with this, it's just a smooth. I'm gonna cinematically just give you a ride along through this house or this mansion or whatever.
You say cinematically, which that ties into the whole reason why I think 360 cameras, though they're very cool and they're way better now than they were when they first came out, but I still don't think they ever really fully took off. And part of that is because the viewer doesn't know where to look when they're so used to having whoever directed that footage force them to look at what they intended them to force on. So in your case, you're creating that experience for them. They can just sit back, relax, and walk through this building they're going through. But otherwise, they have to like do it themselves. And I think they're too lazy to do that. So.
Right. Just having the options is pretty cool, and I think it's a very accessible thing because, like, virtual tours you can charge a lot for, but like having this is like, it's a real simple thing and fun thing for me to do, and I could just do it and very little post. All I need, because the examples that I have here, this is like before, this is like me starting to take this into more commercial.
Yeah.
So now I've gotten all the flying in. I have skills. I feel confident now. Now I want to take this and just use it to sell something that you don't normally get, something that's a little more niche. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic way to just easily tour a home and get out. You can charge them less because it's not that much work for you. And then be done with it.
That's sweet.
And not nearly the level of competition out there at the moment as what photography has.
Right.
A lot of people can pick up a wide angle camera and hit every corner of a house.
We sell a wide angle lens probably once a week to someone who's trying to get into real estate photography.
Yeah.
And if you put in a little bit of the time, like you say, the effort to learn this kind of thing, maybe it takes 3 years or something like that. But that's not unlike learning how to use just a professional camera. You still have to figure out the ins and outs, the controls, the techniques, and you still have to be patient.
Absolutely.
So you could figure out a professional camera. I think a lot of people could figure something like this out.
So for a newbie, they buy the little, it almost looks like a honeycomb, right?
The Cine Whoop. This one in particular, the frame in particular is called a squirt. That's just the frame. So when you get these drones, you can buy them already made for you.
Right.
But and for this, I think it would be a great option because I've built these for years and it's tedious. And at this point, I could just buy one pre-built. If I break it, I know how to fix it.
Right.
But like for the average person, they're gonna have to I recommend that they learn how to solder, how to repair things. So you could buy this brand new, already built, and if it breaks, just try to figure out how you could fix it, and then go from there. I started from scratch. I just did all this research on YouTube, 3 months of research. Then I ordered my parts, and then I put it together. And luckily, I was one of the lucky ones that just took my time and it got done well the first time. Some people don't have such good fortune with it. I mean, these parts come from China. Sometimes, the brand is reputable, but they have a bad batch. It's like building a PC with kind of cheap PC parts.
Sure.
So it can have its frustrations and its limitations. But I would say that if you want to start learning how to fly aerobatically, or at least the quadcopter in acro, then the best thing that you can do is just get a radio like this, and there are different ones, but look for something that has USB connectivity or something that can cut to your computer. And then there's many different simulators, but the ones that I recommend the most are Velocidrone and Flow State. And Flow State is on Steam, and it's free, and it has really very realistic physics. And then Velocidrone does as well, but it's not. It's $20 to buy it. You buy it once, and then that's it. But it has an amazing community of pilots that also edit and create tracks, as well as myself. I create tracks, and then you learn to fly your drone in the simulator. And then when you get out there, it may not be like 100% match in how it feels, but it'll give you exactly the understanding to get a real drone and fly it around and have be completely confident.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of working on the small details. Like I could kind of, work on this movement. I can do it better, do it cleaner, that kind of thing. So it's about like really like passionate about extracting the smoothest, cleanest lines out of your flight.
Sure.
And yeah, it's like a never-ending process of perfection, trying to get that perfection.
Right. And so does the this is the controls, right? Is that what you call it? Controls or controls?
Yeah,
do they come in like a pack? Can you get like a drone and a controls, or do you have to go separate? Okay, cool.
Yes. So you can get you can also get these really tiny ones that you can fly inside your apartment. They look like this, but they're really small. They're smaller than this. This is a little 3-incher. It's like a hummingbird almost. They're smaller than this even, and you can fly them inside the house. They're ducted, and you can learn how to fly on those, but they're very underpowered. And you like the motors, they'll get dirty, and you have to clean them, or you get like little lint in there, and you have to. It's like you're maintaining a little machine. And like kids can't handle that. Like once they bend a propeller or break something, that's done. And so that's why I always tell parents, don't buy your kids a drone. It's gonna be done. Like when the kid is in, building like Legos or starting to get into engineering and STEM, then get him a drone. He's gonna take care of it. He's gonna want to learn how to fix it and everything like that. But the best thing I can recommend is the simulator. You can get a tiny whoop. You can get a cine whoop, very accessible, and then you could start learning to fly it in real life. But once you have the taste of power, the power of a 5-inch or the power of a racer, when you can just rip up a mountain and then just eat up ground and just fly along the ridge of a mountain, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's where the money's at right there.
It reminds me a lot of the footage. They have a ride in Disney World called Soarin'
over California. Yeah, it's very. I think that was done. That had to be done by like helicopter or. I mean, that's been there forever, but
like the IMAX. What is it called? IMAX type stuff. They
have your
very
legs,
much like that.
Your legs are hanging off, so like you feel like, and they play like they make wind effects and all this stuff. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever gone?
Sorry, go ahead.
Have you ever gone to like an IMAX movie screen, like designed for IMAX film? Like either a dome or like that kind of like what do you call it?
Parabolic
screen. I saw, what was it? Batman, the one with Christian Bale, the first one, The Dark Knight.
Okay.
And that scene,
Kyle's favorite.
Yeah, that scene when they're zooming into the building where the guys are like, I guess, about to rob the bank. When I was in the IMAX theater, it just felt like you were in the air, like flying towards this building. It was amazing. It's like that's that level of film. So in your goggles, it's a VHS version of that. If that helps. Because like the first time that I took off and I was able to go inverted and look down at myself was just such a trippy feeling. And then
did you lose a little bit of were you standing or sitting the first time?
Yes, it can happen where even today, I will move in a certain way. Like I'll just catch myself in a slightly off balance position, and I do a certain move, and I'm like, whoa! I almost tripped over myself there.
So gonna zoom this in because I was watching this earlier and I was like, hold on, there you are right here.
Yeah. Yep. That's it. So
beardless.
Yep. So this was my wife's cousin's wedding, and I wanted to use the Cine Whoop throughout the wedding during the day, but it was very windy, and I couldn't use it. So that's where sometimes you're just limited. It's like, okay, this is an outdoor venue. It's not inside. I got all this wind. It's just not going to let you control it correctly. Sure. So I waited until night. Then the wind calmed down, and I decided to give it a shot just to see what I could get. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I got this.
So yeah, here you are controlling it.
So I was able to just fly around people and get the party. And this drone sounds like a really loud vacuum when it's moving around. So if you want to get like sound, you have to kind of just pre-record it or just pull from something else. And so what I did with this party is the people were playing in the concert. I recorded GoPro footage, handheld GoPro footage of the party, and then I used the drone, and then I put the sound together with the drone footage so that it sounds like I'm just floating like a ghost, flying around the party kind of thing. Right. So
looks like a Gatsby party, man.
Yeah. So I just kind of was getting like the environment. This is kind of towards the end of the party, and just trying to get like I was still kind of battling the wind. You can kind of see where it kind of just like hangs out there for a little bit, struggles a little bit. And I'm kind of like being a little bit jerky with it. I could get a little bit smoother, but yeah, this is fun. This is just fun. And they loved it. Despite like, I'm the photographer's photographer. I'm the drone pilot's drone pilot. So I always compare myself to like the pros, and I'm always like, oh, I could do way better. But
yeah,
the reality is if people love what you do, there you go. Like, don't worry about what your rivals think.
Right. So let's talk. Cool, though. Oh, go ahead. Mitch.
Yeah. One second. There's a picture I gotta find. So that has to do with this that I didn't have ready, which is But you guys what were we gonna talk about?
I was gonna get going to macro too, because I wanted to cover macro.
Sure.
Unless we're not done talking drones. It doesn't matter to me.
We'll revisit it in a second because I gotta find this picture that it's like it combines everything that we're talking about.
Sure. So not only do you do kind of the drone stuff, but you dabble in macro photography too. And so let me share. See if I can find this real quick here. There we go. Let me share the screen. Oops. Just when you think you know. All right. I like this photo, but I'm going to go to my favorite out of all of them first. Here. This little guy.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is shot on that camera that you were telling us about earlier, or is it a different camera now?
Yep, same camera. So
D5100.
Yeah, D5100. It's pretty basic body, but it's the lens that makes the magic and the flash. So I have this f-stoppers flash disc. This is a Sigma 105 millimeter, so it's a macro and portrait. I use it for macro, and that's how I get this stuff. So what I do is I shoot at, this lens comes optically stabilized. Normally, you might want, I guess, some macro photographers get really serious about how they hold their cameras and stuff. Like I'll do like what do they call it? The McNally grip. I'll just kind of use my elbow, and then I don't autofocus. It's a nightmare to try to autofocus these guys. So you just set your focus, and then you just move in or out, and then you just keep shooting, and they just keep doing their thing, and eventually you get this like charismatic shot. So this spider I found in a kind of a small little foresty area, so you didn't have like the hard sunlight. It was kind of shadowy, so it kind of knocked off the background.
Yeah.
And you get the shallow depth of field is like it's at f22, so it's like real. Like you always want to get the eyes. You don't want to get like anything else. Like the eyes is the most important. If you don't get the eyes, the photo's ruined. So you just want to get that shallow depth of field right on it. And this spider in particular was missing a leg, so it's just kind of and it just kind of has this like little extra like little sad little pensive spider.
He's not
I
a
hate
spider
spiders,
anymore.
man. Here's the thing. All the photos that you have kind of creep me out because I am like deathly afraid of spiders. We were watching Lord of the Rings the other day, and they had that spider scene in the last movie, and I was freaking out. And so, but this is actually what I would say a cute spider, right?
Yeah,
it's like it looks innocent.
Yeah, jumping spiders are extremely charismatic. They kind of really observe their environment. They're like, what is the universe? And they kind of look around. And there's some pictures that I have in there as well. That's a spider looking at itself in the mirror. And
is that what that was? It kind of looks like a spider mating or doing some kind of mating dance.
So there's a male, the one above. If you go up a little bit higher, let me see a little bit. Yeah, right there.
There we go.
Yeah. So this was in the bathroom mirror. I was trying to set up a little bit of a light box and just trying to get some shots, but the spider was always active, always moving. So I took like a big piece of like driftwood, set it up against the mirror, and the spider found itself in the mirror and it started to react to its reflection. And I just started shooting. And I was like, this is amazing. So male spiders, which this is a male spider, they have that kind of flashy iridescence on their fangs.
Okay.
They'll kind of like territorial, and they'll kind of do like a little bit of a dance, like kind of like stay away from my area.
Right.
And so he was doing that with this reflection. And I took a few that are in there, and you could see the different kind of positions that he was just looking at himself in the mirror.
This might be the only time a spider's ever seen itself, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're pretty fascinating, and they're bigger than typical spiders, and they're not aggressive, so they're easy to kind of like take pictures of. They have a charismatic, you can see their eyes. They kind of look like they have a personality. They're like little I don't know, like little cats.
Mustache kind of.
Yeah, it's got a little mustache.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
so they really are like my favorite type of thing to shoot in macro. Any jumping spider is the coolest thing to shoot because you can like I do this thing where I'll look at it and then wait until it observes the camera lens, and then I just go in. And when I go in, the spider focuses more into the lens. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's seeing its reflection or what.
Sure.
But it's like, whoa, what is this? And it just kind of stays there for you and poses for you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
let me keep going here.
So ever since I was like a kid, I've always been fascinated with bugs. I always like finding stuff and looking at it. And then when I got into macro, then I started to actually like just find stuff, shoot it, and then go find out what it was. Yeah. And I'd find out what species it was and kind of different things like that. So all kinds of colors and designs and patterns.
Right. Yeah. These spiders have some crazy eye patterns and it was a praying mantis. There was one crazy spider. Let me go to it. It was the last, like one of the last, the last photo.
Yeah.
This looks like, this is my nightmare.
Yeah.
Man.
This one, it's one of my favorites.
You didn't find that around our apartment, did you?
No, this one was in Texas, but like I like the hairiness of it,
right?
And then you have all those textures and things, and a lot of this because the camera itself, the body is not like the most awesome thing. It's a crop sensor, which kind of helps with macro because it kind of zooms in just a little bit further.
Definitely.
But it's limited. So when I take a photo raw, it's not bad. But I really have to take it into Photoshop and push it, like really push it and get it to where it looks like where I have that sharpness and I have like the colors I use. Have you guys ever heard of high frequency separation?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the people that don't know, it's a Photoshop technique for like smoothing out color without ruining the texture of things.
Sure.
So I'm not really retouching the color. I'm just using high frequency separation and doubling it so that it enhances the sharpness further. And then I do some gradient masks, and then that kind of balances out. So you get a lot more like richness. And I try to keep my post look real minimal because I'm not like passionate about really getting in mass and like, doing dodge and burning and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of want to do an overall kind of thing. And so I get the sharpness up, and then when you post on Instagram, and I know like, photographers, we're so conflicted because it's like we shoot for Instagram or we shoot for the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's when I do the Instagram thing, so I basically shoot and I do this and then this is the photo. But then what I go further is I take it into my phone and then I use photo apps like Enhance or what is it? Snapseed.
Snapseed, yeah.
Yeah, and then you enhance the sharpness further to what it looks like on your phone to where it's accessible, because that's where people are going to be looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're kind of limited because where macro looks amazing is when you send it off to print and they print it in large poster. In Instagram, you got it on a little phone. So you have to really be choosy about how you crop it, because I want to show detail, but it's hard to show detail in Instagram.
Right. Instagram's sharpen tool is actually pretty it was pretty impressive from whenever I would start using it.
Okay.
I like their sharpen tool, but I use Snapseed as well.
It's good to know. I feel like I get biased with apps compression and their tools.
Right.
Like it's like the automatic stereotypical assumption that it's not as good as the other ones, but if it works, it works. It's just how you see it on your phone.
I was reading some crazy thing about how Instagram, you'll get more likes on a photo if you use an Instagram filter on your photo than you will if you don't use an Instagram filter on your photo.
Conspiracy.
Yeah. And so we've been trying, sometimes we'll slap an Instagram filter and then you can control how much of the effect there is, right? And so if you make it like one out of 100, you can't even tell the filter's on there, but it still says like their metadata of Instagram says that you still have it on there. It was this crazy like conspiracy theory. I didn't have enough patience to like really work on it, but I was like,
it's like the hack of like, and in YouTube, they kind of really control the music.
Okay.
So with drone footage, I can use the propeller sound very subtly to, I guess, change the way the music is picked up to where it doesn't match.
That's a dirty trick.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. So I can usually put some good stuff out there, but at the same time, I kind of want to be more original. So I kind of sort through like some more underground type music. But
it's clever using that to fool the AI.
Yeah, it's just real subtle too.
I wasn't able to find that picture I was looking for. I saw it on Instagram the other day and I scrolled past it before I thought, I should probably talk about that. But it was, this is just something similar and it's not nearly as good, but this is just to represent what I was talking about. But they had, somebody had their light on their drone and it wasn't just an LED light like this one is showing off and the dude's just standing there flying, which is cool. But they had a car. A really nice car. I forget what type of car it was, but they had a really nice car and the paint was really reflective and everything. And it was at night and they had an LED, like a directional light facing off the front of the drone and he was doing orbits around it. And unlike like if it was a DJI, it'd just be a perfect ring. But since this thing was a freestyle drone, it was going all over the place. So you had that crazy cool light pattern everywhere.
Right.
And I was like, that just mixed like everything cool together.
Yeah.
Cool car photography, cool long exposure, cool drone work, cool light.
Right.
It was kind of cool. Like
now, I will say that I do still like the kind of more giant Alta stabilized drone that's carrying like a spotlight to get like some of those really cool shots of like the mountain skiers at night, and you're just kind of spotlight on them, following them. That's like using a drone for lighting. That is really cool.
It's crazy.
Whole new world. Whole new world lighting. You could technically. And I do this without a drone. I just use a giant, like a selfie stick with a little LED on the top. Yeah. And if you do enough passes over a car or some other subject that you're trying to light up entirely, that you really couldn't do if you used a softbox, because you would need a softbox that's like twice the size of the thing to get that soft light. But you can almost in a long exposure create that large light source just by putting a small light source for a long amount of time in the air. Which is
I have a buddy that he's a beast at Photoshop, and he took a softbox that was, I think it was less than a 36 inch. It was more for portraits,
Okay,
and
like a box or something.
yeah, and then he did a shot of my wife with her favorite car, her mini car, and it's super sporty looking, and in the environment on the underground kind of like parking with a lot of like lights, overhead lights. So it had this like Christopher Nolan look, like the Dark Knight kind of look.
Yeah.
And we just shot, like I held the light and he just did the shots with a Canon 200 millimeter lens. And I would post, shoot, it would pop, and then I would move, and I would pop again, pop. And then he just tediously took all the good stuff from all the photos and put it together as if it were a giant softbox.
Yeah.
So if you're a beast and you're willing to put in the post,
Right.
That's one way you could do it. And then then you could, if you really want to do it legit, then yeah, the big giant softbox.
It's an amazing effect though when you do that. You should try. That's your girlfriend's Mini Cooper then outside, right?
Yep.
You should try. You should try the drone thing with the
light painting
and the long exposure. I think that'd be really cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, there's so many interesting things that I want to do with it. Like I want to make a thing that's attached to a servo where you have a canister, which this might be this is allegedly I'm going to do this because it's kind of it's considered illegal to drop anything from a drone.
Okay.
But I mean, like, how cool would it be to drop a package?
Fell.
Right.
It just fell.
Right. if you have something that's like the size of a bank, what do you call that thing that shoots up the tube?
Sure.
Yeah, you have something about that size, and you have like, I don't know, a letter or courier thing, and you're in the city. This could be the new courier thing. You have a guy like me, send it across the city, get to right the building window, don't even have to go through the elevator. Boom, there's your delivery, your message or your cash or whatever,
Yeah.
Right.
That kind of thing would be really cool, or just being able to just fly by and drop off the goods and then just go back.
I agree with you. That would make my job a lot easier.
Yeah, doing the light thing. You can also like put a GoPro behind the drone, and if you've planned the flight path, you can have a car getting as close as possible to the drone from behind. But it's very challenging because you can't frame the shot. You can't see what you're shooting. You just have to trust. And there's certain things. There's so many different things that you can do once you get into it if you're interested. But the main thing that I recommend is just, if you have a drive for like getting to the end result, like I want to just fly, I want to fly as good as I can, then that gets you through all the frustrations of figuring stuff out.
Sure.
Yeah. It wasn't until that new GoPro came out that I really felt like it was something I was maybe going to try to do, because that looked like it took a lot of the frustrations of trying to get stable footage out of the equation, because it's just so that the GoPros are so impressive with their stabilization now, and it was like, man, if it you could put it on any drone that doesn't limit your roll access like a DJI, where you're kind of stuck to doing this.
Exactly. Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
But still, it has its purpose because it's got the gimbal, and so the DJI limits its roll so that it doesn't affect the limitation of the gimbal.
Yeah,
it's prioritizing the shot and stabilization above all else, but it's not a flying experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't. I need to do a barrel roll to be happy.
Right. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that, Leo? Did you see that footage of the guy flying his drone right over the cash register building?
Oh yes, this is so cool.
I didn't.
Hold on.
I didn't, but I've seen a lot of different ones that are.
I also feel like this is totally illegal.
But I don't know. Let's see.
It can be if it's federal, right? If you're in a federal building, because I've got guys. I have a friend that's a explorer, urban explorer. He loves sneaking into buildings and getting to the top of the roof, and then getting these amazing like night city shots. And he's told me stories of friends that tried to get into a Comerica building or try to get to the top, and they're in prison. So it's that serious. Yeah, if it's federal. Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, it got shared on like 9 News and all this stuff. Let's see.
That's the thing. Like as soon as like you if you get caught doing it, you're in trouble. But as soon as people see it, they're like, "Oh wow, look at this cool footage of the city. We don't care how it was taken."
Now, get this, and so this is, it's like the craziest drone footage I've ever seen. That I know is drone footage, but this is just
beautiful.
And then you just, it's a racing drone, and you know, and then it just speeds up. I don't know how looking on your guys is.
We're getting
it looks just like it. Yeah,
cutting in and out, but
yeah, that where it like zooms down right here is just it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So now I don't know what the legal status is of putting someone else's video in our
So that type of drone right there is basically what I showed you, which was the freestyle drone. That's what it, you know, it's as simple as that one. And what's interesting is it's camera tilt. So when you fly these things, your camera tilt is kind of a personal preference. So if you go all the way flat with it, where the camera is pointed straight across from the prop line, so you can see it like that. So I don't know if you could barely see the camera that's right there, but if it's pointed straight across the prop line, then your throttle you're looking at the world like level like this as you're hovering. And so when you full throttle, you're just going straight up like an elevator. But the way that we fly is we have a slight up tilt. So the camera points slightly upwards like that. So when you dive a building, see how the camera's pointed straight down, and I'm coming down like this.
Okay.
And so then the building's like right here. And so you get this dynamic shot where as you're pulling up, you're still looking at the ground, but then you level off and you know, you kind of then you start to look more up at the sky a little bit. So that's kind of how you know what your relation is. And I could fly different tilts, but typically pilots have like a preference because every time you change your tilt, it changes your stick mix, and it takes a few flights to kind of get the hang of it again. So it just changes how you coordinate because both sticks, the yaw and the roll, coordinate a turn, and you can keep it real level, or you can just roll like an airplane. So that coordination is dictated by the tilt. And racers go like really tall tilt, not necessarily 90, more like 45. And that gives you a good balance where you can kind of pivot around a pole or around a gate and then go through. And you're mostly flying kind of aggressively like a rocket like this. But if you apply too much, then you'll drop and hit the ground because there's no thrust being applied to lift. It's only going forward. So in racing, it's, you know, if you've ever heard like when people say you fire a bullet out of a gun, it actually will drop. Like as it goes straight, it just drops. So it's the same with a drone. If I really like when I exit a turn and I know it's a straightaway and I have some altitude, I will sacrifice dropping for going really, really fast. Like I just tilt it like that and just launch it. And then as it's dropping, when I notice that I'm getting close to the ground, I pitch back slightly, and then it keeps it from bottoming out. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. For most people, they probably think of a drone as something that largely just hovers all the time. But these are, let's say you're putting no input into the controls on the sticks, you're just at half throttle. It's kind of always going forward.
Yes,
it doesn't just sit there and hover. So that's where it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a plane, but not. It's like you said, it's like a rocket, like a missile.
Yeah. And if you're used to the idea of an airplane, it's real easy to get the hang of a quad because the quad is just that it can hover depending on your angle. Like you lay back or you pitch back. Like in an airplane, you pitch back to climb. And so you go right. It's the same way with a quadcopter. So you have power, you pitch back, and you're going to start to climb. So at some point, especially with racing, you're going straight forward and you're kind of rolling to turn with a little bit of yaw. So it's very similar to like a jet because you're full throttle and then you pitch back to climb, pitch forward to nose down, and then the roll with a little bit of yaw is what gives you the turns.
So, they sound cool too. How many
they scream.
Episodes back, I was like looking out the window and you're like, Mitch, what are you looking at? I was like, this drone just sounds so cool. I just keep looking.
I pick and choose my moments because I don't want to burn the neighborhood out with the sounds. But yeah, I mean, it's still louder than like a weed eater or something like that. Like if somebody's going around, like the leaf blowers are louder than the drones, but they do scream. And I learned something interesting that it's the props. The very outside tip of the prop is actually breaking the sound barrier, and that's what's causing the sound, like that screaming sound that it makes.
No way. That's so cool. It's like a whip.
Yeah, it's like a whip. So it's like a weed eater, basically. It's like,
That is wild. Yeah, I was trying to describe it to my sister, and I was like, it sounds like a Formula One mosquito.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you feel like a hummingbird, basically. Like,
yeah.
You're just like super fast. You can stop like almost on a dime and just like park in front of a tree just for a second. Like you can look at it and then hover or take off again, change directions, go and punch it. It's just so light and just so powerful.
That's awesome.
Very cool. I wish we had some comments, some questions to ask, but I think anybody who was watching, definitely check out some of the footage. Your Instagram is. Do we have a way to link that down there?
Yeah.
Can we just say
you can put. Let's see, Instagram.
You can look me up under KumaCraft on Instagram or YouTube. I will be posting more stuff later. I think right now I've kind of taken a hiatus. I kind of try to stay away from social media because, like, I feel like I get stuck in the feeds and then I lose motivation for creativity.
Yeah.
So when I stop doing the feeds, then I start to think of things that I kind of want to do to create.
Sure.
So I kind of stay away for a while, and then I just post some stuff, and then I leave for a while, and then I post some stuff.
It's a balance.
Yeah,
I'll give
a
you
life balance. That's a healthy thing. I think more people should do that.
If you want to follow Leo on Instagram, I have put it in the comments below, and to give him a follow. You can see all the cool stuff that he's doing. Oh, this looks crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of stuff to watch now.
Yeah,
and then we'll share this on our Twitter and stuff. Actually, let's try it again. I'm gonna just put this here for instance. Facebook didn't like it. There we go. Now it's posted. But there's so much information that we talked about today. So if anyone's interested in getting into drones and stuff like that, it's definitely worth the watch. So.
Yeah, hit me up. I'll help you out. I'll point you in the right direction. I mean, time is limited. If I don't answer, it's just because I'm doing other things. But if I get to you, I'll answer any questions. This is fun. If later on, if I post some sweet stuff that you want to talk about, feel free to let me know, and I'll come back on.
We'd love to have you back on. I'm really happy you did come on. Actually,
yeah,
yeah.
We wish you the best of luck in Texas.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and glad to meet you more in a conversation than under a mask, and being like, all right, how's it going?
Yeah, so hard. You can't even tell if people are smiling at you with this.
I know.
Like, everyone looks angry.
Yeah, I'm like squinty eyed. I'm smiling. I'm smiling.
Like, see, I'm smiling. For sure. Well, Leo, thanks for coming on, man, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, guys, later.
Mitch, tomorrow we have Meg on. We're going to talk about the polar opposite of drone racing and drone videography, but elopement photography. And so she's always out in Rocky Mountain National Park. So we'll ask her all the ins and outs of what she does. So
that's what's so cool about what we do. It's it reaches so many different people in a bunch of different ways. So
exactly. Cool. This has been Camera Shop Talk for whatever day it is in quarantine.